ever since Katrina ravaged New Orleans in 2005, people have looked at hurricanes differently, and many are wondering whether global warming is making hurricanes worse. The latest scientific research suggests that by altering the environment where tropical storms form, climate change could make hurricanes more intense but less frequent. Tom Knutson, a hurricane expert at the Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory in Princeton, New Jersey, uses high-resolution computer models to simulate the future climate. He looks at how changes in climate affect the frequency, or year-to-year change in the number of hurricanes.
And we find that greenhouse warming does not lead in our models to an increase in hurricane numbers, but instead we actually get a decrease in overall counts of hurricanes.
Knutson found that hurricanes that do form in the coming years as global warming increases might be more intense than the storms that typically occur today. But he also says that observed trends to date don't demonstrate increasing intensity yet, although models predict this may occur.
However, we cannot yet at this time point to a smoking gun on the observational side and say, aha, here I see this large increase of intensity, and that's attributable to human influence.
But meteorologist Kerry Emanuel of MIT disputes Knutson's take on the empirical record and computer models. Emanuel said that hurricanes have indeed become more powerful during the last 30 years, mainly because of increasing ocean temperatures, a trend which some studies have linked to global warming. Emanuel also cites both observational records and modeling studies to support his conclusion.
Yeah. I was critical of one piece of interpretation. That is that he made what I view as a non sequitur, that his results showed that what's happened over the last 30 years is not due to global warming. I think that's too credulous of what the models are saying. That's one possible interpretation. But in fact, I think what I've shown demonstrates the opposite, that the last 30 years of the Atlantic probably is global warming.
Based on his interpretation of the relationship between warming Atlantic sea surface temperatures and observed data on hurricane power during the last 30 years, Emanuel believes that the models might be underestimating warming's influence on hurricanes.
And there is a contradiction between what nature is telling us, which is that hurricanes are hugely sensitive to how warm the climate is, really, and what models are telling us, which is that they aren't very sensitive.
Regardless of where they stand on the relationship between hurricanes and climate change, hurricane experts say that increased coastal development and climate-related sea level rise virtually guarantee that we will be more vulnerable to damage from future storms. Hurricane damages have already been doubling with each passing decade, a trend that experts say is likely to continue, independent of climate change.
All of my colleagues are unanimous on this particular issue, is that the United States has a really, really bad hurricane problem, even if there was no change in the hurricanes, because of policies. And Katrina was the tip of the iceberg. We will have more Katrinas, whether or not there's global warming. The next one might be in Tampa, or Miami, or Houston.
Emanuel and his colleagues are concerned that policymakers aren't doing enough to discourage people from moving to at-risk coastal locations.
We really are set up for a string of these disasters, and people in my profession have been sounding the alarm for decades about this. And there is no serious attempt underway to re-examine the policies that lead to this behavior. It's a piecemeal approach. What's this city's evacuation plan? What's that town's plan? Okay, that's necessary, it's important.
Emanuel says that federal disaster relief programs encourage people to rebuild homes and businesses in vulnerable locations.
But meanwhile, the large-scale policies, the regulation of insurance, the provision of federal disaster relief, without any questions asked, and no cost sharing, all of those policies encourage people, without their really understanding it, to take risks. The pricing signal has been masked. That's the big problem. And unless we tackle that problem, we're just going to have more and more Katrinas.
While scientists continue their study of the relationship between climate change and hurricanes, they agree that more effective strategies are needed to prepare for the next landfall of a major hurricane.